Sometimes one moment of kindness changes everything, but Zara Williams doesn't know that yet. Rain pounds Murphy's diner at 11 p.m. Zara, 22, African-American, finishes her shift, exhaustion etched in every movement. Through the steamed window, she sees him, an elderly white man struggling with his walker, soaked and trembling in the storm. Her manager, Rick, yells about closing duties. Her phone buzzes with overdue bills. Tomorrow's problems crowd her mind, but the old man stumbles. Without hesitation, Zara grabs her umbrella and steps into the rain. "Sir, are you okay?" Theodore Whitman, 72, distinguished despite his confusion, looks up with startled, intelligent eyes. Rain has plastered his silver hair to his forehead. His expensive wool coat tells a story that doesn't match his vulnerable state. I can't remember," he whispers. Zara takes his arm gently. "It's okay. I'll help you get home." Neither knows this single act of compassion will expose a web of corruption and transform both their lives forever. Zara guides Theodore through the downpour, doing her best to shield him with her tiny umbrella. The streets are flooding fast. Water runs over her shoes and chills her feet instantly. Theodore's walker clicks unsteadily on the slick pavement, every sound echoing like a warning. "Do you know where you live?" she asks. I think it's Beacon Hill, the blue shutters. My wife, she painted them." His voice trails off, fogged with confusion. Beacon Hill. Zara has cleaned homes there before, but never stepped past the service entrances. "You're safe with me. We'll find it," she tells him, even though she's shivering through her thin diner uniform. With each block, the storm grows fiercer, wind ripping at their clothes, rain stinging their faces. Zara can barely feel her fingers, but she keeps a steady grip on his arm. Every instinct tells her to get this stranger out of the cold. When the neighborhood suddenly shifts from cracked sidewalks to immaculate brick paths, she realizes they've made it. Moments later, she spots the towering mansion with the blue shutters shining faintly under a street lamp. "This looks like it," she says softly. A warm voice calls from inside. A woman opens the door, rushing toward them with concern. "Mr. Whitman!" Thank goodness. She sees Zara. "You helped him?" "I just didn't want him alone in this storm." They usher Theodore inside, and before Zara can slip back into the rain, he presses a small card into her hand. A name embossed in elegant gold lettering nearly stops her breath. Professor Emeritus Theodore Whitman, Harvard Law. Zara walks home drenched, the card burning in her pocket like a spark she doesn't yet understand. But by morning, Zara S-World will collapse so violently that even a Harvard connection might not be enough to save her. Dawn barely breaks when Zara's phone alarm shrieks through her cramped studio apartment. 3 hours of sleep. Her eyes burn as she drags herself from the fold-out couch she calls a bed. Theodore's business card sits beside her phone, impossibly clean in a room full of patched seams and dollar store repairs. For a split second, she wonders what world he belongs to, one where people don't lose sleep over overdue bills. Her roommate, Maya, stands by the apartment door clutching a stack of envelopes with pale knuckles. "Zara, the mail came early." Something inside Zara tightens. Early mail is almost never good. Maya hands her the envelopes, each one stamped with a government seal or bold red letters. Zara tears open the first. Final notice. Eviction proceedings initiated. 72 hours to vacate. Her stomach plummets. "But we paid," Zara whispers. "We always pay." "Read the next one," Maya says, voice trembling. "Federal Loan Services. Default warning. 1247, due immediately." A wave of nausea rolls through her. Another envelope. This one is worse. City of Boston. Housing code violation. Fine. $15,000. Deadline. 30 days. Zara reads the listed violations, disbelief twisting her face. Unauthorized structural modifications, illegal subdivisions, improper food storage, occupancy exceeding legal limits. "It's our curtain divider," Maya says bluntly, "and our hot plate. And the fact that 2 of us live in a studio." "They're criminalizing survival," Zara whispers. Before she can breathe, her phone rings again. The community center director. "Zara, I'm so sorry. We lost funding. Today's your last day." Something in her chest shatters, Rent overdue, loans overdue, job gone, a $15,000 fine, eviction in 72 hours. Her entire life collapses in minutes. Maya places a trembling hand on her shoulder. This happened to my cousin, remember? Their whole building got violations. 6 months later, luxury condos. The word slices through the room. Gentrification. Organized. Targeted. Coordinated. Zara's eyes fall to the business card she tucked into her pocket the night before. Theodore Whitman. Harvard Law. A man once known for fighting these exact battles. She stares at the name for a long moment, her pulse steadying. I helped him when he needed it, she murmurs. Maybe he'll help me now. But when she knocks on Theodore's mansion door, she will discover he isn't just willing to help. He is the storm they never expected. Theodore's mansion looks different in daylight, majestic, imposing, guarded by ornate iron gates. Zara hesitates, clutching the violation notice and the newspaper article she found about the housing crisis on Meridian Street. Margaret, the house nurse, opens the door. Her eyes widen. Zara. Honey. What's wrong? I need to talk to him, Zara whispers. Please. Margaret leads her to a sunlit sitting room where Theodore sits slumped in a leather chair, staring blankly at a crossword puzzle. His confusion hangs heavy in the air. Mr. Whitman? Zara steps closer. It's me, Zara, from last night. His eyes flicker, searching, then focusing. The angel, he breathes, the one who walked me home. When she explains the violations, the eviction, the pattern affecting every family in her building, something remarkable happens. The confusion clears. The old professor straightens, sharpens, awakens, like someone lit a fuse inside a dormant volcano. Let me see those papers, he says, voice suddenly firm. He examines each document with razor precision, annotating, circling, muttering legal jargon with clarity that shocks even Margaret. $15,000 for a hot plate and a curtain, he growls. This is fabrication, the same playbook they used in '67. You know him? Zara asks. Theodore's eyes harden. Frank Morrison. I knew his father. The family business has always been corruption. Then, to Margaret, bring me my secure phone. Margaret freezes. She hasn't seen him this focused in years. Theodore dials with steady hands. James, Theodore Whitman. Yes, I'm lucid. I need an emergency case taken today. Pro bono? You owe me favors. Yes, that's right. Patterson case. The client is Zara Williams. Zara watches in stunned silence as Theodore summons powerhouse lawyers, Harvard legal aid, and former colleagues, old allies who once fought alongside him in civil rights battles. Call after call, the old lion unleashes decades of influence like a man who has been waiting for a fight. When he hangs up, he looks at Zara with fierce determination. You saved me in the storm, he says softly. Now I will help save you and your community. Zara's throat tightens. Why? Because justice, he murmurs, isn't an academic exercise, it's a promise, and I intend to keep it. But when the city learns who is helping Zara, they respond with retaliation so brutal it nearly destroys her, and Theodore too. The knock hits Zara's door like a battering ram at 6 a.m. Bang, bang, bang. Boston Municipal Housing, open up! Zara's blood runs cold. Maya peeks out of the bedroom, eyes wide with fear. Zara opens the door to find Inspector Frank Morrison himself, square-jawed, cold-eyed, and flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Ms. Williams, he says with a false smile, we've received additional complaints about this property. What complaints? Zara demands. Morrison lifts his clipboard theatrically. Anonymous tips, illegal substances, fire hazards, health violations. He steps inside without permission. The officers scatter like wolves, tearing through their tiny apartment. Maya clutches her textbooks as one officer photographs them. Fire hazard, he mutters. Another photographs their mini-fridge. Improper food storage. The curtain divider, unauthorized construction. The power strip? Illegal electrical modification. Zara feels sick. They weren't violations until you created them. Morrison steps close enough that she can smell the mint on his breath. Careful, Miss Williams. Allegations against city officials are considered harassment. You're destroying families, she fires back. This is predatory. His smile turns predatory. If people cannot afford legal housing, he says calmly, they should not live here. Screams echo from the hallway. More officers, more families, more destruction. Children cry as their homes are photographed and condemned. Mrs. Carter collapses to her knees. The Rodriguez family begs in Spanish. Jamal is handcuffed, temporarily, when he tries to stop them from breaking into his room. Morrison prints a brand new violation notice. Fresh ink, fresh cruelty. 72 hours to vacate, he says coldly, or face criminal charges. This is our home, Maya cries. Not for much longer. Zara's hands tremble as she pulls out her phone. She searches Frank Morrison Boston Development. Her heart stops. A photo shows Morrison smiling beside Richard Blackstone, the CEO buying every condemned property. You're profiting from this, she whispers. Morrison's smile drops. Smart girl, he says quietly. Too bad smart doesn't pay rent. He leaves, but his final words freeze Zara in place. And that old man you've been visiting, Whitman, be careful. Association with criminals could tarnish his legacy. It's a threat, not at her, but at Theodore. And just when Zara believes things can't get worse, they do. By the time Zara reaches Beacon Hill, her life has been reduced to what fits inside a cardboard box. Clothes, a few keepsakes, a photo of her grandmother. Everything else is locked behind yellow tape like she's the scene of a crime. Margaret spots her through the window and rushes outside. Zara, sweetheart, what happened? The moment Zara speaks, the dam breaks. The raid, the false violations, Morrison's threats, Maya's fears. The entire building condemned. Margaret's face darkens. That sounds exactly like what happened to my village back home. Corruption wearing a suit and a badge. Inside, Theodore sits at the breakfast table, reading the paper with surprising clarity. When he sees Zara, the transformation is instantaneous, like watching a soldier shift from rest to battle stance. Tell me everything, he says, voice steady and commanding. Zara recounts the raid in trembling detail, Morrison's smirk, the planted evidence, the threats, the terror in her neighbor's eyes. Theodore's jaw tightens. This is a coordinated assault. They're clearing the neighborhood intentionally. Margaret disappears into Theodore's study, returning with a thick folder. I found these in your old case archive. Theodore opens it, and instantly the past collides with the present. Morrison Sr., he murmurs, pointing to a yellowed document. He orchestrated the exact same scheme in the 1960s, fabricated violations, forced displacement, and developer kickbacks. Zara stares. It's the same plan? Theodore nods. Same family, same corruption, different generation. Minutes later, the doorbell rings. David Carter, investigative journalist for the Boston Globe, steps inside, laptop slung over his shoulder. Professor Whitman, he says, shaking Theodore's hand. My dad told me you'd call someday. I'm calling now, Theodore replies. This is the biggest case you'll ever work on. They gather around the dining table as David pulls up spreadsheet after spreadsheet. Morrison has condemned 12 buildings in 3 months, David explains. Every one of them sold to Blackstone Development within weeks. Bought for pennies, Theodore adds grimly. Then flipped into luxury condos. Zara S. handshakes as David shows her a map marked with red dots, each dot a destroyed community. What they did to your building, David says softly, they plan to do to the entire district. Theodore rises slowly, gripping the table for support, but his voice is steel. We're not just fighting for your home anymore, Zara. We're fighting for every family they've crushed. Margaret places a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. You're not alone, Mija. You have warriors now. Outside, the sound of drills and cranes echoes down the street, construction chewing through her neighborhood like a monster with metal teeth. But when their expose hits the press, the fallout will shake the entire city and put Zara directly in harm's way. The article goes live at dawn. David A.'s investigation, fueled by Theodore A.'s testimony and Zara A.'s documentation, hits the Boston Globe with the force of a tidal wave. 2 generations of corruption, how the Morrisons profited from displacement. Within hours, it's everywhere. Phones buzz, news anchors scramble, city officials duck for cover. Social media explodes into outrage. Zara scrolls through comments, disbelief and adrenaline flooding her veins. This is Morrison! Arrest him. Protect these families? Theodore watches calmly from his study, sipping tea like a general observing a battlefield he knows well. Truth, he says, travels slowly for years, then suddenly, all at once. By mid-morning, reporters swarm City Hall, microphones shove at officials. The mayor issues a statement calling the allegations deeply concerning. The housing authority announces an internal review. Theodore snorts. Translation: they're searching for a rug big enough to sweep this under. But Zara remains uneasy. What if this makes everything worse for the tenants? It won't, Theodore promises, because today we're going to show them what justice looks like. 2 hours later, a black sedan pulls into the driveway. Margaret looks out the window and stiffens with recognition. Elizabeth Whitman Cross, federal judge, Theodore's daughter, the woman whose decisions can change lives or destroy empires. She steps inside wearing casual clothes, but everything about her radiates authority. Dad, she says softly, embracing him. I came as soon as I read the article, and this, Theodore says proudly, is the young woman who saved my life. Elizabeth turns to Zara, her expression softening. I owe you thanks for looking after him. Now I need the full story. They sit together in the study, surrounded by decades of civil rights history. Zara tells everything, from the rain-drenched night she found Theodore to Morrison's retaliation. Elizabeth listens with razor-sharp attention. Show me the building, she says suddenly. Zara blinks. What? Now? Yes, Elizabeth replies. Justice doesn't wait. They walk through Meridian Street, passing boarded doors and frightened families. When Elizabeth sees the yellow tape wrapped around Zara's home, her professional mask cracks. This building is structurally sound, she says, voice tight. There is no legal basis for condemnation. One by one, neighbors gather. Mrs. Carter, the Rodriguez family, Jamal, all telling their stories. Elizabeth's expression changes from concern to fury. This isn't enforcement, she declares. It's conspiracy. She turns to Zara. You'll need to file a federal complaint. Once you do, I can issue an injunction. What does that mean? Zara asks. It means, Elizabeth says, nobody gets thrown out, not on my watch. But the moment they try to stop the corruption, someone else steps into the fight, someone with power far beyond the city level. Elizabeth's phone rings with a tone sharp enough to cut glass. She steps away to answer, her voice low but forceful. Mr. Mayor, yes, I'm aware of the article. No, I will not be pressured. Federal jurisdiction supersedes local politics. Zara exchanges looks with Margaret. Does this mean trouble? She whispers. Theodore smiles grimly. Trouble is how good things begin. When Elizabeth ends the call, she's transformed. Not just a daughter or a judge, but a force of law. Zara, she says, file the complaint today. I'll make sure it's reviewed immediately. They return to the mansion, where David is already waiting with new information. His expression electric. You need to see this, he says, flipping open his laptop. A diagram appears, a chain of financial transactions. City contract budgets, Morrison's department, Blackstone Development, campaign donations to the mayor, budget cuts to legal aid and community centers. Zara covers her mouth with her hand. They dismantled every safety net on purpose. Exactly, David replies. It's bigger than corruption. This is coordinated abuse of power. Elizabeth leans over his shoulder, scanning quickly. Then she freezes. This, she says quietly, is federal racketeering territory? RICO? Zara asks, unfamiliar with the term. Theodore beams with a spark from decades past. RICO means organized crime. It means prison. And it means immunity for whistleblowers and victims. Elizabeth nods. You're not just fighting for your home anymore, Zara. You're about to become the lead plaintiff in one of the biggest civil rights cases this city has seen in decades. Zara feels her knees weaken. Me? Why me? Because, Elizabeth says gently, you stood up when others were afraid, and the law needs a voice. Then the front door bursts open, Margaret rushing in with her phone. Turn on the news! They do. A reporter stands outside a suburban home swarming with federal agents. Breaking. City Housing Inspector Frank Morrison has been taken into custody on charges of corruption, fraud, and conspiracy. Zara covers her mouth. They arrested him? Theodore places a hand on her shoulder. They arrested him because of you. The news anchor continues. Investigations are underway into Blackstone Development and multiple city officials for potential racketeering schemes. Elizabeth turns to Zara. Once you file your complaint, I can issue the injunction. No more evictions. Everyone stays. Zara's hands tremble, but not from fear, from purpose. But the fight isn't over, because taking down Morrison was only the beginning. And the people above him will stop at nothing to protect their empire. With Morrison arrested, Zara dares to believe the nightmare might finally be ending. But Theodore, ever the strategist, sits her down at the dining room table, his expression stern. Corrupt men don't work alone, he warns. Morrison was a foot soldier, not the general. He's right. By the next morning, powerful forces start moving. City Hall holds an emergency press conference. Cameras flash as the mayor steps to the podium, ironed suit spotless, voice remarkably calm for someone whose administration is under fire. We condemn the actions of Inspector Morrison, he says solemnly. But we must stress, he acted alone. The lie rings loud enough to shake the room. David slams his fist on the table. They're distancing themselves from him. They're preparing to bury the evidence. Elizabeth folds her arms. They won't get the chance. Zara files her federal complaint at noon. The clerk at the courthouse looks surprised, not by the nature of the case, but by the name attached to it. You're with Judge Whitman Cross? The clerk whispers. Zara shakes her head. I'm with the truth. Hours later, the injunction is signed. No family may be removed from 47 Meridian Street. Pending the federal investigation. When Elizabeth hands Zara the stamped order, it feels heavier than paper. It feels like power. But the victory is short-lived. Black SUVs appear on the street near the building. Men in suits, sunglasses, earpieces. What is that? Zara breathes. David narrows his eyes. Private security. Blackstone Development has deep pockets. Very deep. They watch as the men begin photographing tenants, writing down license plates, speaking quietly into radios. A chill creeps up Zara's spine. They're trying to intimidate everyone. Theodore grips his walker with white-knuckled determination. Then we'll make it backfire. David, get pictures. Document everything. Bullying families under federal protection is a violation. Suddenly, one of the Blackstone men approaches Zara directly. Miss Williams? He asks. Zara stiffens. Yes? My employer would like a word. Privately, perhaps. We can make this all go away. Before she can respond, Elizabeth steps between them like a shield. Approach her again, she says coldly, and you will answer to the U.S. Attorney's office. The man retreats without another word. Zara exhales shakily. This is getting dangerous. Elizabeth nods. Dangerous means we're close to something big. Theodore smiles faintly, and the truth is beginning to choke them. But the real bombshell is about to drop. Evidence so explosive, it will threaten careers, elections, and decades of hidden deals. David arrives at the mansion before sunrise, out of breath, laptop clutched tight. Margaret lets him in, startled by the urgency in his eyes. Where's Theodore? He pants. In his study, Margaret replies. What's wrong? David sprints down the hall. Zara and Theodore look up from a pile of documents as he bursts in. You won't believe what I found. He opens his laptop. On the screen is a spreadsheet, larger, more detailed, and far more damning than anything he's shown before. These are internal financial logs from the mayor's office, David explains, leaked by someone anonymous. Elizabeth, arriving moments later, freezes mid-step. How did you get this? I don't know who sent it, David replies, but it's real. He scrolls. There it is, a clean, undeniable trail. Blackstone Development, donations. Donations, Mayor's re-election fund. Re-election fund, budget cuts to legal aid. Budget cuts, increased authority to Morrison, building condemnations, Blackstone purchases, a perfect circle of corruption. Zara feels dizzy. This is everything. No, David says, there's more. He scrolls again. Emails, hundreds of them, from the mayor, from Blackstone's CEO, from Morrison's son, all discussing expedited clearance, priority acquisitions, and removal of low-income barriers. Elizabeth's face turns to stone. This isn't negligence. This is intentional displacement. Theodore closes his eyes briefly, overwhelmed but focused. This will bring them down, all of them. But then David hesitates. One more thing, he whispers. He opens a folder marked Confidential. The conversation inside is short, but devastating. Once we secure Meridian Street, we move to Beacon Hill outskirts. Potential acquisition, Whitman Estate, prime location, family unlikely to resist due to health issues. Zara gasps. They were targeting Theodore? Elizabeth's face pales. They plan to bulldoze his home. Margaret covers her mouth. Those monsters. But Theodore, his jaw sets with fire. Good, he says quietly. Let them come for me. Now we have motive. Elizabeth turns to Zara with urgency in her eyes. If these emails are authenticated, this becomes a federal racketeering case, not just civil, criminal. Zara swallows. What happens now? David closes his laptop. Now, we take all of this to the U.S. attorney. Theodore stands, straighter than he has in years. Prepare yourself, Zara. The storm we started is about to hit hurricane strength. And when the U.S. attorney steps in, the fight will explode into a national scandal, with Zara at the center of every headline. The meeting with the U.S. Attorney A.S. office takes place in a towering granite building downtown, a place where the air feels heavier and the halls echo with decisions that change lives. Zara walks beside Theodore, who insisted on coming despite Margaret's protests. If they're going to take our testimony, he said, they're going to hear it from me in full. Elizabeth meets them at the entrance, her expression equal parts stern and supportive. This is it, she tells Zara. What you say in the next hour could redefine the law in this city. Inside, the federal conference room is cold and intimidating. Long metal table, flags on each side. A seal of the Department of Justice looming above. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Lang, sharp-eyed and formidable, greets them. Judge Whitman Cross, she says to Elizabeth. Professor Whitman, Miss Williams, we've reviewed the documents you sent. We need every detail. Zara begins from the beginning. The rainy night, the confusion, the kindness, the raid, the threats, the condemnations. The words tremble at first, then strengthen as Theodore squeezes her hand and nods. David presents the data. Elizabeth explains the legal violations. Theodore adds historical context. Cases from decades ago, patterns repeating, a legacy of corruption uninterrupted. Rebecca listens without blinking. Then she closes the file. This, she says, is a pattern of criminal conspiracy. We are opening a federal RICO investigation immediately. Zara exhales, but Rebecca raises a hand. But understand this. Once this begins, there will be retaliation, political pressure, media manipulation, threats. If you continue as lead plaintiff, Miss Williams, they will come after you. Zara's heart pounds. What happens if I say no? Families lose their homes, Rebecca says simply, and the case collapses. Zara looks at Theodore. His old eyes carry decades of battles, victories, losses, sacrifices. You once told me, he says gently, that kindness is a choice. So is courage. Zara straightens. I'll do it, she whispers. I'll lead the case. Rebecca nods. Then we stand with you. As they leave the federal building, reporters crowd the sidewalk, cameras flashing, microphones outstretched. Miss Williams, Is it true you're suing the city? Are you afraid of retaliation? Professor Whitman, why are you involved? Zara freezes, but Theodore steps forward with surprising strength. She saved me, he announces. Now she's saving Boston. The cameras explode with light, and just like that, the story becomes national. But the closer they get to justice, the more dangerous the opposition becomes. And soon, someone will try to silence Zara for good. The national spotlight hits Boston like a meteor. News vans line Meridian Street. Commentators debate corruption. Citizens flood social media demanding accountability. Families from all over the city contact Zara, sharing their own stories of displacement and fear. But the brighter the spotlight grows, the darker the shadows around her become. Late one evening, as Zara and Maya walk back from Murphy's after a double shift, they notice a black SUV idling across the street. Windows tinted, engine running, watching. Maya whispers, Zara, that's the same car from earlier today. Before Zara can respond, the SUV peels away, unease curls in her gut. At the mansion the next day, she tells Theodore and Elizabeth what she saw. Elizabeth stiffens. That's intimidation, she says. Classic tactic. They want you scared. They want you silent. Theodore leans forward, tapping his fingers on the arm of his chair. Then they underestimate her. But the threats escalate. Anonymous calls, blocked numbers, deep, distorted voices saying, back off. Drop the case. Go back where you belong. One night, Zara returns to her condemned building for her last few belongings. Maya waits in the car as Zara slips through the yellow tape and heads up the stairs with a flashlight. Halfway up, she hears footsteps behind her. Slow, heavy, deliberate. She spins around, nobody, but the footsteps continue above her, then below, closing in. Her heartbeat thunders as she rushes into her old apartment, now stripped, cold, and littered with dust. A shadow moves in the hallway. Hello? She calls. No answer. She backs away until her shoulders hit the wall. Another shadow. Another step. Closer. Suddenly a powerful flashlight beam blinds her. Zara Williams? Her breath snatches. It's not a construction worker, not a police officer, not a neighbor. It's a federal agent. Ma'am, you need to leave this building immediately. We intercepted communication suggesting you were being followed. Zara stumbles out as two agents sweep the building. Theodore arrives minutes later after Elizabeth calls him. He looks shaken, furious, his hand trembling on his walker. They're escalating, Elizabeth says quietly. Which means we've cornered them. Theodore turns to Zara. You have something they fear. Truth, and truth is dangerous to men who built empires on lies. Zara exhales, shaking but resolute. I won't stop. Elizabeth nods. Then neither will we. Outside, the city skyline glows against the night sky. But beneath the lights, battle lines have been drawn. Tomorrow the courtroom doors will open, and the entire city will witness a showdown that will change everything. The federal courthouse is overflowing. Families from Meridian Street fill the hallways, reporters swarm, TV cameras flash, activists hold signs demanding justice. The air vibrates with tension and hope. Inside the courtroom, Zara sits at the plaintiff's table beside Elizabeth, Theodore, and David. Theodore wears his best suit, the one Margaret ironed 3 times until the creases were as sharp as his mind today. He grips his cane with one hand and Zara's hand with the other. You walk in there with your head high, he tells her, not as a victim, but as the woman who brought a corrupt empire to its knees. The doors open. The judge enters. The room falls silent. Evidence floods the courtroom. Financial records, emails, testimony from terrified families, audio clips of coercion, photos of Blackstone's intimidation, documents tying Morrison, his son, and city officials to the entire scheme. But there is one moment that changes the entire trial. Theodore testifies. He rises slowly, leaning heavily on his cane. The courtroom holds its breath. In all my years of fighting for justice, he begins, voice steady, I've seen cruelty dressed as law. I've seen power used to crush the powerless. But what was done to these families is among the worst abuses I've witnessed. He points toward Zara. And this young woman, he continues, voice thick with gratitude, showed more courage in one rainy night than some men show in a lifetime. Zara wipes her eyes. Even the judge looks moved. When Zara takes the stand, she tells her story, not with anger but with honesty. She describes the storm, the walk, Theodore's confusion, the cruelty of the raid, the fear, the threats, the determination that kept her going. Her voice never wavers. By the end, half the courtroom is in tears. By verdict day, the nation is watching. Guilty, racketeering, fraud, conspiracy, civil rights violations. Blackstone development executives are indicted. Morrison's son faces charges. The mayor resigns in disgrace. Then comes the change that no one expected. New federal protections for tenants. Funding restored for community centers and legal aid. Emergency housing reforms enacted. But the most powerful moment happens back at Meridian Street. The building that once sat condemned under yellow tape now buzzes with celebration. Families cook food in the hallway. Children run freely. Laughter echoes through walls that once carried fear. A banner hangs above the entrance. The Whitman-Williams Housing Protection Act, signed. Zara stands beside Theodore, who beams with quiet pride. You changed the world, she tells him. He shakes his head gently. No, Zara, you did. Rain begins falling, soft, warm, cleansing. This time, Zara doesn't grab an umbrella. She tilts her head toward the sky. Because now, rain doesn't feel like a warning. It feels like a blessing. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share one act of kindness that changed your life. But if you think Zara's story was unbelievable, wait until you hear what happened to a young college student who skipped her final exam to help a billionaire's sick wife. Everyone called her foolish, until a helicopter landed in her yard the next morning.